Oh, child, y'all can tell it's a Friday. Not that we came on late, we came on muted. I hit y'all with the hey y'all authentically and you missed it, but that's okay. Hey y'all, nice to see everyone. Hello, every beautiful body out there. If you're not familiar with me and this beautiful face and hair and nails, and I'm sorry, it's Friday. My name is Blair G. Hervey, and I am the founder and CEO of D Corporate Strategist. As always, I'm joined by my poised. He's giving poise today. Colorful co-host, my bestie, my soul friend of 20 plus years. Say hello, DeAngelo.
Hello, everyone. It's everyone's best friend, your homeboy, your best Judy, the speaker you need a book. Wait, I was see you
That
threw
was
me off a
cute.
little bit. I'm trying to get
Start it
into
over. Start it over. Okay.
Hey, everyone. It's everybody's best friend, your homeboy, your friend of Judy. Can get it out today.
Y'all, happy Friday.
The speaker
child.
you need a book, the diversity geek, here to spread love and light once again with you, Blair.
That's cute.
See, I'm getting it together.
You know what? So remember when I told y'all that winging it is for the birds?
But I practiced that in the shower. So you just threw me off when you did you were shocked, but you're not gonna be shocked on Monday because I'm getting it down pat.
Well, a good way to make sure that you all are prepared for any of your intros, any of your meetings, any of your podcasts and panels is to have some notes, especially since it's virtual. You can always have them on one half of your screen.
Yeah, that would be great. But notice that we're using your screen and using your name. My name hasn't been there all week long. So I'm not even here. I'm chopped liver. I should just go like this.
He's wanted to do that all week, but too bad. I mean, we're like magnets. Oh, these nails look great today. I just got them done with my little cousin. But he has been responsible for stage management today. So let's give it up for DeAngelo. Okay, I'm just doing this because I love these bell sleeves. But nonetheless, y'all, okay, let's get it back together. Bring it back home. I'm super excited about this topic. We may have a guest speaker pop in and surprise us. If not, I promise you that we are, at least one of us, is the ideal person to have this conversation. I'll let y'all guess who the ideal person to have this conversation is. But before that, we can get into our sunny segment since you just turned the sun on for us.
I sure did because we needed more lighting, honey, okay? Thank you, stage manager. Okay.
Bringing it back.
Right, exactly. All right. As we do here every day at the Black DEIBA Collective, we do the art of the check-in, and it's really a tool and a best practice that we're asking leaders to do every day, where you just take a moment, not just that one moment, you take a couple minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, to really dig a little deeper and ask your team members, your employees, your best friends at work, how they're feeling. And I'm going to practice that right now with Blair Hervey. Blair Hervey, how's your heart? How's your soul? How's your mind today?
I'm great. So I am a little tired, which is a little unusual for me. So during 2020, I picked up this skill where I could rehearse in my dreams. So lucid dreaming. I had this really important proposal to get out this week, and I was just a tad bit late today, but I rehearsed it in my mind last night, stayed up late and woke up early. So I feel like I've been working all night. So I'm a little tired, but other than that, it's Friday. So I'm gonna take a nap shortly. I'm good to go. How are you?
I'm great. It's always a pleasure to have you here with me to share in this space. And we had dinner with some really amazing friends last night that filled us up and had us laughing. So anytime you get to be with great people in a great space, it's such a blessing. So I can be happy. It's Friday.
It is. It is.
So look, Blair.
Yes.
We're live.
We are.
And so just want to make sure you all know that because we're live and we have a small budget, we can't just book guests at the last minute. So if a guest has an emergency, what happens is just us two, just talking about what we're talking about. So that's what's going to happen today. Like I said, if our guest is able to make it, great. If not, we're live.
Yes.
And we did not want to go live because that's what we do. We go live.
Absolutely. We make sure that we provide that daily dose of D&B for you all every single day. So this topic was actually brought to us by our potential guest, and perhaps we'll continue with the conversation at some other time. But I think this is going to be a very fun conversation because it's going to put both of us on the spot. So the conversation is all about being Black and queer, particularly in DEI. So DeAngelo, did you have a little bit more of an intro for us, or do we want to hop right in?
Well, the intro I had was that Lena Waithe said, being born Black, female, and gay is not revolutionary. Being proud to be Black, gay, and female is. Okay. And so when I think about this topic of being able to share your experiences, share your sexual orientation or sexual identity proudly, especially in a Black community and working also in this DEI space, sometimes it can be a daunting task, and sometimes it can be a rebel. by doing that, right? Our temperate radicals. So today we're just digging into the topic a little bit as we prepare for Pride Month in a couple weeks. As next weekend is Black Pride Weekend, and I'll be out engaging with all my fellow brothers and sisters. Right?
Did y'all catch that? That was
yes.
cute.
We wanted just to kind of engage a little bit into this topic about being, as our guest would have called it, BlaQueer.
Which I love that because it sounds like something I would name my future child.
So we will have Eric on to come and talk more about that phrase that I think only Eric may have coined. So we'll talk about. But that's what we're talking about today.
I just want to throw that out there. I did Google it.
You did?
Yes. Okay. So it's definitely a term. I've never heard it used before. So a couple questions that I was going to ask Eric, and perhaps I can ask you. But before that, let's go back to why we are two people that should be having this conversation. Would you care to share how you identify openly as, your holistic self?
Well, I think when we think of the identity wheel, I'm Black because that's how what people see me as first and foremost. Well, I got my bug, right? But I'm also a proud gay Black man, and so I wear that badge proudly, and I've been able to lean into it. But I always tell people I was very blessed to have a parent who didn't make me or allow me to be anything else other than myself. So I didn't to hide or not to hide or to be more. I don't even use.
She knew who you were before you knew who you were.
But you know what? I'm also saying that there was not even any other options. The only option was for her space, and the space she created for me and cultivated for me was to live proudly in the truth of what I'm walking in, right? So it was just she cultivated and helped curate that space for me. Okay. And not everyone has the same blessing of having people around them who allow them to do that.
I love that.
That's all I want to say. But yeah, that is me. So we true story, you all, is that right before this call, she was like, "Oh, you're the best person to talk about this." I was like, "Well, aren't you a person who can talk about this too?"
Because
okay, what did I say? What did I say then?
I said, I believe that we can have this conversation as well, basically. Yeah. And I said, well, at least one of us can. And then I think you said, yeah, me.
No, I did not say that. That's not what I said. See how revisionist history is what they call it. No, that's not how it was. So I remember it was probably, was I like 22? I think I was living in Vegas, maybe. And
about 30 years ago.
Yeah, okay, whatever. 10. And you called me and you was like, "Hey, I'm dating someone." And I was like, "Oh, what's his name?" I was like, "Duh." And he was like, "Her name is," I was like, "Her name is," well, and I just flipped out of my chair. I rolled around. I was like, "Oh my goodness, let me give you a hug. Oh my goodness, welcome to the family." And we've had lots of really deep conversations about that over the years. But I asked you that before this session because I know that's not something that you always share, right? And not because you don't want to. It's just not. It is part of your story, but there's also lots of other things that are part of your story that make up who you are, right? They're just as significant. So
I think that's fair. So when people ask or when we have conversations, and I'll tell you that I started using this word, once Janelle Monáe came out and started using this word, I was like, oh, this is what we've been saying about me all this time, because you used to always say, well, you love who you love. Right. Well, after we got over the other hump, which we probably will talk about. But I said, okay, yeah, this makes sense. I would definitely identify as pansexual because I do love who I love. But you're absolutely right. I don't. And the reason why is because of our interaction. But I don't walk around waving a flag or saying that openly. It's not because it's a secret, because anyone who's known me know that I dated women probably longer than I dated men. If I don't know. But it's been a while. But I don't do that because of the conversation that we've had about the privilege that women have. I don't know if it's specifically Black women. We would have to dig into that, but that women have to be openly fluid in that way without any consequences in a lot of situations, recourse or stigma attached to it. So it's not that I'm not proud to be pansexual. It's just that I love who I love. I like who I like. And when I'm in those relationships, that's who I'm with. I don't need anything other than that, but it doesn't impact my rights. It doesn't impact my livelihood. It doesn't impact my lifestyle. It doesn't infringe upon or cause any harm. And I think about that just like when I was going to go to Ghana and purchase some property most recently. And I was like, D, you got to come over and, and he was just like, wait a minute. before I come over, we got to check the laws. Those aren't things that I have to think about. So it doesn't affect me. My sexuality or how I identify privately doesn't affect my day-to-day life. And I respect the conversations that we've had. And that's why I don't. So even on documents, when it comes to like applying for grants, I usually prefer not to say, because I don't want to take advantage of that part of my identity when it's not a plight. Does that make sense?
No, I think
I think
it makes so much sense what you're saying, and probably
Mhm.
what other people have maybe not articulated, but you're able to say that and share that and be vulnerable with saying that honest truth, right?
Yeah.
But I do think there's some similarities and commonalities between the journey of, if we, the reason why I used to say you love who you love is so you didn't want to do labels. We had a whole conversation over and over again about labels, right? And identifying it. And
Right.
now being 40 years old, big age of 40, that I understand that more so now than ever. But I also understand, because I also understand a little bit about how labels can be limiting and what stereotypes they put upon you. I mean, I've shared this story often around when I was 26 or 27, and someone in the office, older white male, called me Prince. And it was because I was wearing these god awful, I would just wear whatever colored shirt that I could find at the store. We had to wear ties. It was just whatever, right? And everyone in the office wore blue, black, and maybe, gray, white, whatever. I had pink and lavender. It just was all about my shirts.
Purple.
Right. And he called me Prince. And at that time, I was being in corporate America. I was not as secure as I am today. So calling me Prince was really one of those things where I was like, oh, you're identifying me as someone you probably don't take serious. You think is more feminine. You think is not here for everyone, not thinking about inclusion for everyone. And so I stopped wearing colored shirts for so long because I was really insecure about who I was. And so when I think about this DEI journey, right, and I think about that for us as Black people and the intersectionality of being Black, being gay, being male or female, right? About all those complexities that we have to bring to the table and how we're managing all of the microaggressions that are happening and being thrown at us at any given time, although we're teaching people against microaggressions.
Oh my goodness gracious. Talk about being triggered and re-traumatized in so many different ways. You're absolutely right. But again, in my experience, if I open up, or when I open up as, pansexual, there's no curiosity, there's no, there's no challenge that I experience in that space. So as an example, I remember starting the first global inclusion diversity initiative at one of the tech companies that I worked for that still exists to this day. And just as I was talking to you about, I think yesterday or earlier today, I was the first person to recommend putting pronouns in your email signature. And I was having to explain, and it was a quick Google, right? But I was having to explain to people why that's so important. For those who are transitioning, it becomes less of a stigma for them, and we normalize that that's what we do. And now here we are, 5 years later since I've left that company, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years later, it is normalized. But again, in that moment, in doing that work, I was advocating for others, but I wasn't at risk.
Right.
So talk to me about, in these spaces where you're advocating for others, but you do put yourself at risk by openly identifying as gay, or is that the case for you?
Well, so I think one thing that we have to lean in as, I'm going to be I think when I think about privilege, I'm a male, but also think about the privilege as I'm a DEI practitioner. And so there is some, not innate, there is some, I'm going to say assumption, and that's probably not the best word to use, but that your DEI practitioner may come from underrepresented community, right? So they may bring different, and also I just tell people all the time that your who you are is your superpower, right? And so leaning into that has allowed me to understand so many diverse perspectives and being able to come to the table and understand so many other people's perspectives. I understand the male perspective. I understand the LGBTQ plus perspectives. I understand the perspectives of Black people, right? So I'm able to bring all of that to the table and give leaders a better understanding of what's happening in their organization when it comes to these communities, which are often the communities that are suffering the most when it comes to belonging, right? And so I understand that, but I also understand the flip side of many of my friends who are working in different fields, who are working in corporate America, in banking, in tech, who are working in so many different fields. I mean, I think about companies that I worked for many years. I remember when I first started to come out and be open and proud at my last company, and finding people to be on that journey with me and to share the stage with me was very difficult to do, right? Because the complexities of saying, I'm a Black gay leader in this organization who may be leading a team of, call center reps or whatever. What are they going to feel about me? Are they still going to respect me and the work that I'm doing within the organization?
Wow. Yeah,
but
exactly.
The goal of, I think, DEI practitioners, as I've always said, is how do we start to normalize who we are so that people don't feel threatened by that? I'm a big fan. You will hear me all the time. I mean, let me tell y'all something. I've had a very interesting dating life, right? Right, I know. I say all that to say is that over the course of my 20 years of working in corporate America, I've always normalized the fact that all of my team members have been married and have been cisgendered and heterosexual. Well, I was like, I went on a date last night and we had a good time. They're like, what'd you do this weekend? They're like, I spent time with the kids. I was like, I went on a date. I went to the gay club. This is what I did this weekend. Because I think we should be allowed to tell our stories and what we're experiencing, and that single people being single is also something that sometimes is frowned upon in organizations, right? And so I think if we start to normalize and start to talk about these things, and that has been my goal all my life, is to make sure I'm talking about these things so other people can feel comfortable outside of the DEI world to talk about this.
And I absolutely love that. I totally agree with you. And so when I think about that too, whenever I do say, I'm openly pansexual, or, it's almost like a duh to me, but it's almost like oh, really? Tell me more. And so I would prefer, and that's another reason why I don't, broadcast it, because I don't want that reaction. But to your point, if it's just a part of my conversation, then there's less of that response. And I think that's really important.
Well, before you go on, tell people what does pansexual mean? Because that's the other thing. Like I would never use that terminology for you, because I was like, I don't. So tell the audience, what does that mean?
Well,
you love who you love, girl. You just love who you love.
Oh, well,
yeah. Go ahead. Yes.
So the only reason that I use that particular label now is because it really resonated with my spirit, and because I see, again, representation, someone that I love, someone that I adore, someone that I can see a lot of myself in. She's also my Sag sister. We were born on the same day, Janelle Monáe. And I said, okay, this is where my journey is. I can totally relate. But before, to your point, using labels, that particular label, I was just irritated by, because you remember what the label was? What was it?
Oh, was it? Oh, bisexual.
It was bisexual. I was like, no, I'm not about labels. But I think it's really important for people to understand. And back to what you're saying, yes, I like who I like. So I don't need to know what's going on under your clothing to have an attraction to you. If I'm very much a sapiosexual, if anything, I would probably identify as that first, which is someone who is attracted to intellect. I love smart people. If we can have a deep conversation, I'm like, tell me more. And then if there's other things to tell me about your body and how we'll interact intimately, then I'll find out later, if that is a conversation that needs to be had. But a lot of folks, of course, not necessarily a lot of folks, but a majority of folks are not necessarily like that. They need to know what's happening below the belt before they have a conversation about intimacy or dating.
I think it's interesting you say that, but I actually think before we even had those terms, that people were that was something that was very important and was a turn on for people. I remember when I started looking men in their eyes on dates, it totally changed the game for me, right?
Interesting.
So I think it's interesting, and I think we don't need to have this conversation on this show, but can you be gay and be a sexual? How do you say it again?
Sapiosexual. Of course.
You can be okay. Yes. Okay.
So, and going back to some of these labels too, and identification, when I think about it. So we were talking about practicing the other day. So as an example, I haven't dated a woman seriously, and I haven't dated a woman in probably 10 years. I'm sure it's been 10 years. And so when we talk about community and even identification, for a long time, being a part of the community felt great, because I was dating a woman, or I was dating someone that was in the community. I felt a part of the community. We did activities together. We went to Pride. We went to the clubs. But when I wasn't dating a woman anymore, it felt like a disconnection from the community. So I think it's really important for us to have these conversations as well, to normalize, your sexuality and your sexual orientation isn't about, honestly, even though it sounds weird, it's not about who you're sleeping with.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Just, you could be, like you said, you could be a single person and out there, not dating. That doesn't mean that you're less of a gay man. It just means that you're not dating, or that you're not actively dating, a man at that time. So I think it's really important to have these conversations. And going back to, just being curious, like Miss Jane said yesterday, I had to work on that with the ageism. That was a conversation you missed. Not saying the miss, if that's not what has been requested, but having conversations, just like Jane said, being curious and having clear understanding of what is community to an individual, what that means, I think is really important. And then those other things may come out as well.
And let them tell you what the community look like, feel like, what do they need, because they may not need that from community. I have friends that are like, they're like, I don't need the gay community to be gay, right? I don't want to be a part of that community. Sometimes it feels not normal to me, even though I am a person who may engage in homosexual activities or like the same sex. That community is not a community I feel comfortable with. And so that's a whole nother level of complexity. But I think, how do you think your multiple identities has made you more, has shifted you to work in this space? Like, did that play a role in you deciding to get into because for many years I was like, Blair, you need to come over with me. And she was like, no, I'm a sales leader. I'm going to sell to the world. And I was like, no, you need to come over to this world, because she's all, we talked about on the first show, you've always cared for underrepresented communities.
Absolutely.
But did those things, your multiple identities, play a role in that?
You know what? I would say so. I would say the triple minority, if you will, I would have to count it out, but at least a triple minority lived experiences, and then again being a part of a community who is underrepresented in a lot of different spaces. And I'm talking about the LGBTQ community. And being in the spaces, whether it was at the club or good Judy dinners or whatever the case may be, having conversations about how people have to navigate the world differently based on their level or their dimension of diversity definitely encouraged me to want to speak up for the underrepresented. So when I think about, again, specifically me and identifying as pansexual or loving who I love, I'm sure that influenced it indirectly, but I'm sure my identity as a Black woman, single mother, particularly in homogenous spaces where it's full of white males, that definitely pushed me. But what about you? How much did your sexuality, sexual orientation influence you in this work? Or was it more, like you said, about being a Black male?
It was definitely about being a Black male. And so what I want to say is that I want to say a couple of things to that, is that I think we got to make sure when we work in these spaces, understanding that when we are helping the most underrepresented, we're helping everyone. Let's start there.
True.
But we also need to understand our privilege, even within these underrepresented spaces. Because let me just say this, is that I'm going to say something that I'm going to get in trouble for. But as a white gay male, you still have privilege, right? And you have that white male privilege. So understand that there are people who don't represent that. Me as a Black gay male who are still, I have the male privilege, but I don't have the white privilege. So we still need to understand that. And then I understand as a male, my privilege, and with that, even as a gay male, I understand my privilege. And oftentimes, I'm always like, how can we support our Black women? How can we make sure they get paid for the work they're doing? How do I need to advocate for them? Because I even understand that there are spaces that see my male privilege first, right? And they don't even, sometimes they understand that I have these other components of me, but still I'm male first, right? That's what I identify as, okay? So I just want to make sure that it's multi-layers to it. And I'm not going to say here that my journey has been easy or it has been hard, but what I understand is that I have been more cognizant about how I show up and how I need to show up for others in with my underrepresented and also my privilege that I have.
I love that. I really love that. There's so much intersectionality there. And you and I, we talk about it at a very high level, because I think we can both agree that this is an area that there could be some questions around, and I think we're all just trying to figure it out. But the trans community, right? Like, how do we continue to advocate for, align with the trans community as well? Because there is a Forbes article. You know me, I love a good article, right?
Yes, exactly. I love it.
But it shared that there were 4 ways that anti-Blackness shows up in the workplace. One was aggregating all non-white employees. So in that sense, I don't know about y'all on the East Coast, but on the West Coast, we have this infamous term. It's called BIPOC. And that's Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And that's grouping folks together, right? Much like we have a tendency to do with the LGBTQ plus 2IA community as well. The second one was deprioritizing Black issues. So again, when I think about how that can show up, not only deprioritizing Black issues, but again, the intersectionality there, whether it's the L, the B, the T, all of those things. Those are things that we have to continuously educate on, fight for, and speak up for as well, just like you said. The third reason was pay inequity. And then the fourth was expertise. So again, 4 ways anti-Blackness shows up in the workplace. But talk to me about how any of these things have shown up for you, particularly as a Black gay male.
Well, here's the thing is that you could just change those words, right? If you put anti-Blackness, anti-LGBTQness, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But I think that what we have to acknowledge, as I just said before, is that those 4 things, if you layer on the Black anti-Blackness, and then you layer on the LGBTQ, you're going to see even more discrepancies when you think about the pay inequities and the deprioritizing Black issues. Now, once again, like I said to you at the beginning of the hour, is that I have the privilege of working in a space where I won't allow them to deprioritize the issues, right? So if you're going to hire me at your organization, you're going to understand that I'm going to talk about all the issues. I'm going to have all the things, but I'm also going to ensure that you're making sure that those most underrepresented are represented and heard from and valued in your organization. And so that's I remember one time I was doing a radio show at my past job, and they said, DeAngelo, you're saying all the things we wish we could say. Shout out to Corey and Chelsea, who was on that journey with me. And so that is what I'm always going to do, is say all the things that other people who are not able to work in spaces where they can be their full authentic selves and speak their truth. I'm going to speak it for them.
As you should.
Yeah.
Give me some, friend.
Yeah. That's what the goal is. So,
I love that, friend. Yes. I love that. I mean, I think that it just goes back to the more that we identify who we truly are at our core and we express that, it truly gives folks the permission to be their authentic selves as well. So I noticed that in a plethora of different spaces, but when I'm confidently speaking about who I am, what I'm about, people have a tendency to dig a little bit deeper and do the same as well. But I love how you said that you focus on, being the voice of the underrepresented. I do find myself navigating this space and prioritizing Black women, mainly because that resonates with me deeply. And this just gives me some thought. I feel like that is usually what I prioritize. But I'm wondering if, and this is something I'm gonna have to check, if I'm also prioritizing the issues of, this community as well. I think about this too, because I spoke at an event just a couple of weeks ago for Partners in Diversity in Portland, Oregon, for the Black Business Alliance as well. And a gentleman, I believe his name is Ian, he's the executive director of the Q Center there. Hopefully we'll be working with him as well. But he asked us that question. He said, as small business owners, how are you all centering the issues and the challenges of the gay community? And I was just like, well, I'm openly pansexual and my partner is, openly gay, but that's not enough.
Yeah, and I would also submit to you that I think it's, I want to say that maybe it is and it isn't enough. Only here's why I say that is because if you're centering Black women, you didn't say straight Black women. You said Black women. So in that bucket, it can be any woman who identifies as a Black woman, no matter what their other preferences are, right? And so I think you are centering that. And anytime you raise a Black woman, you're raising up everybody. I just want to make sure
did y'all catch that?
I just was gonna say that. I just gotta say that. Okay, y'all. So a couple of things I want to tell you about programming. once a week. You're gonna not twice a week. This week it was twice a week because sometimes it
was.
happens. But once a week it's just gonna be us chatting. If we don't have a guest, so once a week we'll have 4 guests a week, and then it's just gonna be us chatting about whatever topic you want to hear about. If you have some topics you want us to talk about, send it to us, and we'll talk about them. So that is gonna be Monday show. It's gonna be us. We're just here chatting, I believe.
Oh,
yes, I think we're coming back again, unless someone decides to come on next week, since we did 2 of us this week. So
maybe we can get our surprise guest back on Monday.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, I love that, DeAngelo. So yes, feel free to message us directly. Feel free to put it in the comments right now. If there's specific topics that you would love to hear us discuss, we'll be happy to do our research and, toss it back and forth. Yep, excellent. Exactly, yep. Do you have a shout out for us today?
I do. AC Folks, who is the CEO of Folks Consulting and a very vocal voice and activist when it comes to transgender and then LGBTQ inclusion issues. So go out and find AC on his page on LinkedIn and get to know more about the great work they're doing in the community.
Excellent. Well, you make sure you have AC on. I'm telling you, we need a list of all the shout outs. Okay. And we're going to have them all on.
This is our last show. In this in this studio for this week, because it's been so great to have you in house in studio that I can get to touch on you, because that's my love language. So it's been so great.
It has been great.
Me and you shall never part.
Well, thank you all for joining us. This show is not over. This is just the studio that we will be departing from, and I will be going to wherever I'm going next. So it's like, where's Waldo with me, or Carmen San Diego? But nonetheless, join us every single weekday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for your daily dose of D&B with DMB. We appreciate you all. Thank you again for tuning into the Black Diva Collective. Y'all have a great day.